Thank you for joining me for the Bible Truth Commentary. I'm Dr. Matthew Mahan, and on this broadcast, I'm merely going to be reading the preface to a book that came into my possession some time ago called The Doctored New Testament, written by Donald A. Waite, Jr. And I was so impressed with this book and the preface to the book especially, as far as describing the most diabolical and insidious plot that Satan has leveled against the body of Christ since the days of Constantine. So effective was this preface in concisely and accurately describing the issue that I wanted to read it on my channel. So I reached out to the Waites, and brother David Waite, his brother of the brother of Donald A. Waite Jr., granted me permission to read this on my broadcast. So here we go. After I read the preface, I'll have a few things to say about the book and how you can order it and what the contents include. All right? So with no further ado, preface to the Doctored New Testament by Donald A. Waite, Jr. Did the title of the Doctored New Testament catch your attention? If so, you're probably wondering just how the term doctored applies to this particular New Testament. As the title page suggests, the Doctored New Testament began with the work of three learned doctors, Dr. Westcott, D.D., Dr. Hort, D.D., and Dr. Scrivener, D.C.L., LL.D. It has therefore been doctored in that way. But this New Testament was doctored in another more significant way. Previous revisions of the traditional English New Testament primarily focused on improving the English text and not on changing its Greek basis. But with the 1881 English Revised Version, a new wind began to blow. Doctors Westcott and Hort, together with the majority of the revision committee, made thousands of New Testament changes based on their new Greek Testament. This new Greek Testament had been significantly doctored with thousands of various writings from their two favorite Greek manuscripts, Codex Vaticanus B and Codex Sinaiticus Aleph. We'll just call them Sinaiticus and Vaticanus from here. Even though most of the various readings from Codex Vaticanus and Codex Sinaiticus are almost entirely unsupported by the vast majority of surviving Greek manuscripts, Doctors Westcott and Hort included thousands of these various readings in their new 1881 Greek Testament and in the 1881 English Revised Version. Codex Vaticanus and Codex Sinaiticus indeed may be some of the oldest surviving manuscripts of the New Testament. As ancient curiosities, therefore, they deserve a secure place in a museum of ancient artifacts. But oldness all by itself does not of necessity make a witness best. In textual criticism, just as in a court of law, it is best to take witnesses one at a time. And it is best to judge each witness's veracity by direct examination and by cross-examination. Just as in a court of law, a judge and a jury must strive to be as impartial and unbiased as is humanly possible. So should it be when evaluating Greek manuscripts. There should be no respect of persons or manuscripts in judgment. No one should favor the rich, elegant-looking vellum manuscript and disdain the poor, tattered papyrus one based on appearance alone. Each manuscript deserves its day in court, and all judgment should be based on solid evidence, not on preconceived theories. If we were to give Codex Vaticanus and Codex Sinaiticus their own day in court, scribal tradition would respectfully testify against their integrity. A trusted copy of a New Testament Greek manuscript was copied again and again until it finally wore out from use. When this trusted manuscript became hard to read because of use, it was destroyed. A faithful copy of that trusted, now destroyed manuscript carried on the tradition until it too was worn out and was replaced by another trusted copy. If the ancient scribes who copied Codex Vaticanus and Codex Sinaiticus had really trusted the textual integrity of these codices, they, or their contemporaries, would have copied their text over and over again until these ancient documents were worn out from use and destroyed. The existence and condition of these ancient curiosities suggests that they were not copied over and over again as a trusted manuscript would have been copied. Instead of being copied over and over again, however, they were corrected by several scribes over a period of centuries. One of the difficulties in determining the true testimony of Codex Vaticanus is the presence of 4 different sets of handwriting. The early scribes included the original writer and his corrector. Both of these scribes supplied words or letters here and there in the margin or between the lines. Another ancient scribe also made corrections to the codex. Finally, a 4th person, trying either to clarify or to obscure, retraced the faded writing at a later period. But if each letter has been retraced or overwritten, how can anyone know with certainty what the original letters of this codex were? It would seem that this person who retraced the faded writing of the Codex Vaticanus destroyed whatever credibility this ancient curiosity had ever had. The text of Codex Sinaiticus has also seen significant corruption over the centuries. From the 4th to the 12th centuries, at least 10 different revisers saw fit to correct the text of this venerable curiosity. If the text was oldest and best to begin with, then why did at least 10 different revisers feel the need to correct it? How does anyone know for sure when or why each revision occurred? Let me say that again. How does anyone know for sure when or why each revision occurred? Instead of copying this codex again and again, scribes corrected it again and again. Did they know something that we don't know? Because of the large number of obvious scribal errors in his 2 favorite manuscripts, even Dr. Hort had to admit that the copyist of Codex Vaticanus, quote, reached by no means a high standard of accuracy, unquote. He further conceded that Codex Sinaiticus is acknowledged on every side to be worse than Codex Vaticanus in every way. These words hardly sound like a ringing defense of the textual integrity of these venerable codices. If a various reading from Codex Vaticanus or Codex Sinaiticus had no significant support from other Greek manuscripts, how did Dr. Hort distinguish readings that were scribal errors from readings that were the true text? Of Codex Vaticanus and Codex Sinaiticus, Dean John William Bergen wrote that, quote, the text of these 2 codexes is very nearly the foulest in existence. Let me read that again. Quote, the text of these 2 codexes is very nearly the foulest in existence, unquote. In Revision Revised, Bergen compared Codex Vaticanus to the received text of the Gospels. According to his count, it omitted 2,877 or more words, added 536 words, substituted 935 words, transposed 2,098 words, and modified 1,132 words. More than 7,578 words were affected by these changes to the Gospels. Bergen also compared Codex Sinaiticus to the received text of the Gospels. According to his count, it omitted 3,455 words, added 839 words, substituted 1,114 words, transposed 2,299 words, and modified 1,265 words. These changes to the Gospels affected 8,972 total words. But these oldest and best manuscripts do not just differ with the received text in thousands of places, they also differ with themselves in thousands of places as well. Having compared both Codex Vaticanus and Codex Sinaiticus, Burgon concluded, quote, "It is in fact easier to find two consecutive verses in which these two manuscripts differ than two consecutive verses in which they entirely agree," unquote. In his 924-page Codex B and its allies, Hermann Hoskier demonstrated that over 3,000, by the way, that would be in his 924-page Codex Beta, no, it'd be B, and its allies, Hermann Hoskier demonstrates that over 3,000 real differences between Codex Sinaiticus and Codex Vaticanus are recorded in the Gospels alone. Let me say that again. In his 924-page Codex B and its allies, Hermann Hoskier demonstrated that over 3,000 real differences between Codex Sinaiticus and Codex Vaticanus are recorded in the Gospels alone, unquote. Please note that Burgon and Hoskier were counting changes in the Gospels only. This includes Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, but not Acts through Revelation. If we approximate the New Testament's total length by doubling Burgon's and Hoskier's totals, Codex Vaticanus could have differed with the received text in about 15,156 words. Codex Sinaiticus could have differed with the received text in about 17,994 words, and the two codices could have differed with themselves in about 6,000 places. In a court of law, how many discrepancies are necessary before a witness is successfully impeached? Are 2 or 3 enough? How about 7,000 or 20,000 or more? Are 2 or 3 enough? Now, would you trust a pair of witnesses who were caught lying over 15,000 times to their neighbors and who were caught lying over 6,000 times to each other? As a member of a jury, would you place any confidence in the accuracy of a court stenographer who had made over 15,000 known mistakes in recording the testimony of just one witness? And if that witness were now dead, how could you determine exactly what that witness had really said? How would you know which part of the transcript you could trust and which part you could not trust? Whether you share Westcott and Hort's confidence in Vaticanus and Sinaiticus or not, one fact still remains. They did introduce thousands of changes into the existing text of the Greek New Testament and into the text of the traditional English Bible. The doctored New Testament is designed to help you discover and to understand in English the number and nature of these changes. And that's the book I'm reading from. Okay, so this book, the Doctored New Testament, is designed to help you discover and to understand in English the number and nature of these changes. And I encourage you to seek that out. But what about F.H.A. Scrivener? Did he not also doctor the Greek New Testament? Yes, he did, but he doctored it for a very important reason. He doctored it for comparison purposes only. He did not claim that he was making his Greek text closer to the original. The 1881 English Revised Version did not simply revise the English of the KJV. Under Westcott and Hort's leadership, it revised the Greek basis as well. When Westcott and Hort's new Greek Testament was published in 1881, people could compare the ERV with its Greek textual basis. They could compare the English of the KJV with the English of the ERV. but they could not effectively compare the KJV with its Greek textual basis or compare the Greek textual basis of the ERV with the Greek textual basis of the King James Version. Why was this so? On page 7 of his preface, Dr. Scrivener answered this question. The Authorized Version was not a translation of any one Greek text then in existence, and no Greek text intended to reproduce in any way the original of the Authorized Version. The original of the Authorized Version has ever been printed. He explained that the composite nature of the Authorized Version was caused by successive revisions of Tyndale's translation. Although Tyndale himself followed the second and third editions of Erasmus' Greek text, 1519, 1522, later, revisers of his translation before 1611 made a partial use of other texts. Dr. Scrivener chose to begin his task with Beza's 1598 Greek edition. This slightly reduced the number of required changes compared to starting with other Greek editions of Erasmus, Stephanus, Beza, or Elzevir. He also reasoned that between 1598 and 1611, no important addition appeared, so that Beza's fifth and last text of 1598 was more likely than any other to be in the hands of King James revisers, and to be accepted by them as the best standard within their reach. Where the English of the KJV differed from Beza's 1598 Greek edition, Dr. Scrivener, in about 162 places, used readings from previous Greek editions of the received text. He kept Beza's 1598 readings in about 59 places where the KJV had only Latin support. He listed there 221 deviations from Beza's 1598 Greek edition in his appendix, pages 648 to 656. D.A. Waite Jr., M.A., M.L.A., Chesapeake Beach, Maryland. So that's the preface to this book. Now, what is this book? This book, it presents identification of every place where the Westcott and Hort Greek text differs or deviates from the underlying Greek text of the King James Version, and then provides it for you in English, putting in bold the changes, the words that were changed, and footnotes what happened in the original languages where that change was made. So now what you have in your hands a tool by which, without knowing Greek or being a Greek scholar and being able to look it up quickly, you can find all of the places where the Westcott and Hort Greek text deviates from the majority text of the King James Version. This book, and be surprised, because this thing is loaded with changes. I mean, it is loaded with changes. And I believe that this should be in the library of every pastor in the United States of America. It's a real eye-opener, and you might want to buy a copy for your pastor. You might want to buy a copy of it just to be aware. You might want to buy a copy to bring it to church. If your pastor is not reading out of the King James Version, you can see where it deviates just by following along in your doctored New Testament. Now, I'm going to give you the address where you can order it. The order is The Bible for Today, P.O. Box 361, Collingsworth, New Jersey, 08108. I'm going to read that again. The Bible for Today, P.O. Box 361, Collingsworth, New Jersey. That's Collingsworth, New Jersey, 08108. If you want to call and order the book, that would be area code 856-854-4452. That's area code 856-854-4452. And I've been reading the preface to the Doctored New Testament with Westcott and Hort departures from Scrivener's Greek text, highlighted and coded in the KJV, translated from the Greek and explained in English footnotes with letter differences bolded in English and in translated Greek by David Waite, Jr., M.A., M.L.A. All right. I hope you'll buy a copy, and I hope that this video has been instructive to you. May the Lord bless you.